There's some really silly wordplay in the middle of the law in Exodus that I wanted to point out today. Hi everyone, this is R.A. Sweeney. Welcome to Wordplay in the Word, where I try to just kind of point out some different wordplay, narrative patterning, and just interesting things that come up in the Hebrew or Greek of the Bible that you might miss if you're only reading it in English. Today, I wanted to point out some things. I'm in the middle of translating Exodus, and I'm in the law, and I've never actually gone through the law in Hebrew before. So this is my first time through, and it's just fascinating, all the stuff that is jumping out. And so I wanted to share a few of the things. Specifically, there's some silly wordplay as you're going through. And it's honestly, there's like some really like intense things going on in the story. It's in the middle of the law, and I'm just like, why are we doing wordplay here? I never would have expected there to be this wordplay stuff here, and so it was really kind of surprising to see. So I wanted to share just a couple examples of this to show you kind of what I'm talking about, and then kind of talk about why I think it's there. So the first one is in Exodus 22, verses 5 and 6. So in verse 5, you're getting a law about a cow grazing in a field, and if it gets into your neighbor's field and eats their stuff, what do we do about that? Because your cow or bull, I suppose, your bull gets into their field, and now it's taken stuff from them. Like, they are at a loss because of your bull. So what do we do? And then the next law in verse 6 is pretty, it's a similar situation, but it's also kind of pretty different. So it's, if you're burning your field, which you would do, like you would get rid of all the stuff that you don't want. It was a type of fertilizing that people would do where they'd like put wood and stuff in there and they'd burn it, and all the ash would get into the soil and help with fertilizing. And so there were lots of reasons that someone might burn their field. And it says, if it lights the thorn bushes that you kind of use as a boundary line or a hedge, and spreads into the next field, what are we doing about that? And so you can kind of see, like, something happens to the neighbor's field because of something you were doing, but they do seem kind of weird to put next to each other, because one's about like grazing your livestock and the other's about burning a field. But it's interesting because when you look in verse 5 and it talks about when you're grazing your livestock, it uses a really strange word that can mean to graze, but it also can mean to burn something. And so I translate it as consume, because both of those are a consuming process. Fire consumes things, cattle consume things. And so rather than looking at it as when you're grazing your field and your bull gets into the neighbor's field, I translate it as when you are consuming your field or having your field consumed. And then it talks about the cow eating. It specifically uses the very common word for eat. And then the next verse gets into burning, and it's using very clear fire language. But I feel like it's kind of an interesting introduction because it's using this word that is a wordplay to kind of help tie the two together. When you're consuming your field, whether by cattle or fire, if the cow does it, here's what happens. If the fire does it, here's what happens. And so it kind of fits together. It's kind of like a linking of these two sort of related, but also kind of not real related ideas to bring them back together. The second one is just a few verses later. So in chapter 22 of Exodus, verses 16 through 18, you've got a couple verses about a man who has really a relationship with your unmarried daughter. And a lot of people try to turn this into like rape language, and there's nothing in here that really implies that. Just if you've got a virgin daughter and she willingly goes with a man and comes back not a virgin anymore, what do you do about that? And so it says that he needs to pay the bride price for her, and then the dad gets to decide if she's going to be marrying that guy or not. He's paying the price either way because he tried to get the benefit of a wife without paying for it, and now he needs to pay for it, and the dad gets to decide whether he gets the wife out of the deal. So I feel like it's really kind of a very punishment fits the crime sort of thing. And so it says that he'll pay the bride price, and the dad decides what to do. Verse 17 says, and even if the dad decides that this guy's not going to marry his daughter, he still has to weigh out silver. And the word silver there is kesef. And then it goes on, the very next verse, verse 18, it's talking about not letting someone who whispers spells to live. And that's my translation of it. It's a sorceress, essentially, or a witch in a lot of translations. But at least one of the concordances, or the lexicons that I was using, says it's someone who's whispering spells. And I really liked that, so I stuck with that. But it's talking about not letting a sorceress live. I think a lot of us know this one, especially in like the old English, like thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, or something like that is how it gets in the like King James version. But the word for the woman who is doing the spell casting is spelled almost the same. It's a different letter in the middle for the S sound, but there's two S consonants in Hebrew. One is always an S. The other one can be an S sound or a SH sound, depending on where the dot is. In this case, it is an SH sound, but just like a real quick sort of look at it, it looks just like the word silver. And so again, what does this man and woman wandering off and her losing her virginity have to do with a witch? Well, it's kind of tying together the laws that go together. And I'm sure there's a lot more that goes with that. But at least a little bit of it, I think it's meant to have the idea of kesef, and I forget exactly what it is. It's like kashef or something like that. But very similar word between the silver and the witch. So we've got that one. Then starting out the next chapter, it's talking about like testifying wrongly and things like that, and how your testimony gets used. And it talks about not following the masses to just tell the story that people want to hear. And so there's a word there for like the masses. It actually comes from the idea of like abundance. So like the abundant group of people is who we're talking about. And then it goes on to say, essentially, it's like saying like, don't get into the middle of a strife between two people, and some stuff about testimony in that. But it's don't just follow the masses, and then don't get into the middle of the strife. And the word for masses and the word for strife are almost identical in Hebrew. It's basically just a difference of vowels and the same consonant base that we're dealing with there. So that one's kind of interesting. And then my personal favorite is in chapter 23 of Exodus, verse 5. I feel like this is like the silliest wordplay to just think like this is an actual like law in the law, because it sounds really silly. And so you just got a law about like, if you see somebody who hates you and treats you bad, if you see their donkey or bull wandering off, like try to get it back to them. Like do the right thing, be a good person, and just try to get it back to them, because it's their animal wandering off. And you can imagine, like, one, it's part of their livelihood. Two, you've got a loose animal, could be causing problems. Like, there's a lot of reasons to bring it back, but it says to do that. But then here in verse 5, it says, if you see a donkey crouching down, the donkey of someone who hates you, again, it's a different word for hate, but it's a synonym. If you see that jerk's donkey, like, just crouched down, it can't even stand up under its burden. The way that I kind of, like, paraphrase what it says is, like, don't leave it to him, leave it with him. And I think there's a couple ways we could look at exactly who the him is. So it could be like, don't leave the burden for the donkey to deal with. Leave the donkey with the person who hates you. Or it could be, don't leave it to the guy who hates you to figure out his donkey's mess. Leave the donkey with the person who hates you. But I just love that idea of don't leave it with him, don't leave it to him to figure out his problem. Leave it with him, sort it out. And it's lots of use of the word like leaving something. in that so it's clearly trying to like mimic the same language throughout there, and the ambiguity of the nouns, I feel like just kind of works really well. So like I said, these are just some examples. I really like that last one just because I feel like it's silly. But I feel like it's honestly doing some work in the passage, and in Hebrew at least. You've got these word plays that maybe don't translate into English, at least not real well. And I think, especially when you think back to like, these would have been memorized passages. These would have been oral traditions before they were written down, probably. So we've got this oral and memory basis for these verses that we're looking at, and I think these are like early Hebrew like mnemonic devices. So you come to it and you're like, okay, when you're consuming a field, okay, there's two ways you can consume. So if it's your bowl, here's what happens. If it's the fire, here's what happens. And okay, there's something about paying the silver. Okay, yeah. So if a man takes a woman's virginity, you're paying the bride price, and also the sorceress looks like silver. So it's linking them together. It's kind of like rhyming for memory in, if you did like memorization for school, a lot of times we were told to like build like rhyming couplets and things to try to like remember the flow of something. I think that's what's going on here, is God just inserted all this funny and interesting wordplay as a memory device to try to help link one thing to the next thing in these passages. So that's what I had for this week. I hope you guys found that as interesting as I did, because I was just tickled the whole time I was writing these out, because to me it's fun. If you're enjoying these videos, make sure that you are subscribing so that you get the videos as they're coming out. If you like them, that's going to help other people find them as well. If you know anybody else who would appreciate these videos, please be sharing with them so that we can just help other people access the Bible and get to fall in love with the beauty that's in these texts a little bit more as we go through these word plays. Like I mentioned last week, here soon in the next few weeks, I'm probably going to start dropping off between this series and my Friday Ask and Response series. I'm probably just going to be doing one or the other each week, combining them both into the same day of the week and do one or the other so that I'm able to bring something else that I've been working on and want to share with you guys. So be expecting that in the next few weeks. But for now, I'm really grateful you guys were here. I hope this was a blessing, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.